Yes, okay. So, not here yet, but on the mobile I'm live. Two people here. Hello, two people. Seek Truth is here, and Robert Harrison. Well, Seek Truth was here earlier. I don't know if he's here now. Ahoy there, I say. Trump Netanyahu. Ah, here I am. I'm live.
What the hell is Trump Netanyahu?
It's the Nazarite bringing you Hebrew lore from days of yore.
What is that?
So first of all, to all my peeps in the States, one way or another, the people have spoken. I don't know if there are people who are claiming that it was a fraudulent election. I don't know what's going on with people saying, if that kind of statement has been uttered or not by the Democrat Party, or it's. But either way, let's hope that this new president, who will be sworn in January, if I'm not mistaken, let's hope he will be good and lead America and Israel and the rest of the world into a better future. Okay, so Robert said Trump Netanyahu. Lord knows what will happen with Netanyahu, my God. Shalom, James Bong.
Definitely someone say about it.
Over there, okay.
Ze met in.
Oh, good, so, okay, cool. Oh, okay. I already told her. Yeah.
Hey, man.
So, nothing, she's working, man. Night. Pardon me. Really? No, I don't accept that. Stop it. Stop. Thank you. Don't. Thank you. Okay. James Bong, haven't seen you in a while. I hope you're doing well. Shalom aleichem shalom. Peace unto you. Seek Truth said, I'll try to catch your show this morning, but I've been up all night long celebrating Donald Trump's victory. Have a blessed day. Well, many people are celebrating. Many people are weeping, and I'm assuming that once again there will be people shouting, not my president and all that. Far be it from me to judge. I don't live there. I don't vote there. And while I do hold an American passport, as I've said many times, I haven't voted here in 20 years. I'm going to vote as an American living abroad? I don't think so. Bring in the clowns, says yes. Well, I'm already here, so that's one. There were comments that I only saw now because sometimes YouTube withholds them. Sometimes YouTube censors them. Sometimes it, for whatever reason, does not notify me, doesn't show me, and so I need to go into the Creator's Studio on the back end and see. And so there have been several comments here that I have missed. So I'm going to just go through a few of those. Now, first of all, 3 days ago, Nick Polashdia, if I'm saying that correctly, he says this. He asked, "You say you only know how God reveals himself to you. Explain that further, please," he says. In example, you're walking through a forest, looking at a flower. How does God reveal himself? I'm not here to mock, he says. I would like a serious conversation, please. So I answered him with, first and foremost, I told him, hello there, here's a quote from Maimonides, the Rambam. The Rambam says, "And what is the way to attain love and awe of God?" asks the Rambam, and he says, "When one observes the great and wondrous works of his creation, and sees the unfathomable and infinite majesty, he will naturally come to love and praise God, and be filled with a great desire to know him." In other words, from looking at nature and around at creation as such, if you do believe it is a creation, then simply observing it and letting it penetrate you, and that will already do something, says the Rambam. And I told him I would answer your question in this way. I said, the same life force which makes the flower bloom, flourish, and thrive, even as you look at it in that forest, that very same force is within you, giving you life, helping you grow, draw breath, witness nature, and walk through that forest. Meditate on the flower, then, I told him, and perceive it in its simplicity and its complexity. You may notice that you are not unlike each other. A physical creation with spiritual roots. Both of you share a common origin in the earth, according to tradition. Both of you, right, you and the flower, both share a desire for life. Much like you can perceive infinity in a grain of sand, you can see God revealed in all creation. Or I tell him, you can say, no, a flower is just a flower. A grain of sand is just a grain of sand. Creation is simply evolution without rhyme or reason, with no creator. We are all just a random collection of atoms on a blue-green marble flying through space. Fair enough, I said. And that's a perspective that I get those who think that way. And I'm saying, and I finished by saying, it all depends on your personal perspective. That's the beginning. It starts with you as an individual. I hope I managed to explain a bit further as requested. So he didn't answer, but I think he did give. No, he didn't answer, or I don't think he's seen it. But if he does care to look, then he will see my answer. And Maimonides' answer really is lovely. But like I said, I'm willing to accept that there are many, many, many people who consider it just to be a random collection of atoms with no rhyme or reason. Fine. Like I say, fair enough. I'm not going to dispute you. I'm going to say that's not my path. It can be your path. Econ Recon asks, why are Jews so antisocial with non-Jews? Well, that's making a very broad generalization, but the question still stands. He said, seems odd. Could it be connected to rejecting Jesus? Thanks. Well, far be it from me to say why Jews as a group are antisocial with non-Jews. I don't take that as a given. I don't accept that as a proposition. But let's grant it for the sake of the question. If Jews would be antisocial with non-Jews on a regular basis, no matter what denomination or sect or group or path, I think it would have to do with the fact that the Jews are the Hebrew people. Hebrew, my association, the very clear association, is right. Like I said last time, you're on one bank of the river, and the entire world is on the other bank of the river, and it has to do with that idea of you being singled out, not better than anyone, but singled out. And the Hebrew covenant that we hold to is one where throughout the Torah, Moses says, right, don't be like Egypt, don't be like the rest of the nations that you are now coming to, right, whose land you are now coming to occupy at the behest of the Most High. Don't be like them, be like you. So I don't know if it's anti-social, but certainly there are certain things and certain restrictions, be it of marriage, be it of kosher food, be it of, different ways in which the Hebrew people separate themselves from the rest of the world. Now, other religions and faiths and peoples do this too. We all have our own thing idiosyncratically, and it's from the solipsistic me as an individual alone experiencing this creation, just me, all the way to an entire nation of people who have, right, their own culture, their own heritage, their own land, their own anthem, their own currency, whatever the case may be. You choose to separate yourself, right? The in-group, the out-group, it's my tribe, it's your tribe, that whole thing. And so he asked, why are Jews so antisocial with non-Jews? I have not come across that, but I live in a land of Jews, right? I grew up in Israel, and so it's not something that I can say, oh yes, sure, of course it doesn't happen. I'm sure it does happen, and I think, even though I don't think it's right, I think there are some commandments and some fundamentals, some tenets, if you will, of Judaism that would push the Hebrew person to that, not to be antisocial per se, that's not good, but to be separate in his or her ways in accordance with the Torah and the commandments. That will already separate you in some way, but that does not necessarily mean you're antisocial. So I don't really accept the fact that he says this as just like an axiom. Jews are antisocial with non-Jews. Explain. I don't really get that. And he says, could it be connected to rejecting Jesus? I don't think so. The Jews rejected Yeshua because, well, it depends on who you ask, but basically they rejected Yeshua because he was not the rightful king, or they would have embraced him as the rightful king. They would have anointed him and they would have crowned him. And rejecting Jesus, look, it depends how you go with it. The Pharisees, the Pushim, Chazal, our sages, some of them may have rejected Jesus. But before Christianity, right, when it was just Yeshua, right, son of Joseph and Miriam, or Mary, when it was just the guy, Rabbi Jesus, Rabbi Yeshua, if you will, I don't think so many people rejected him. He had quite a following, and I'm sure, as I've said many times, if I was around in Jerusalem at the time, I would have asked to follow him as well. Maybe I would even seek him out. Who's to say? Gotta be honest, says Nikoplashide. Gotta be honest, I'm not a believer, but hey, that don't stop us from being nice. Have a great weekend also, good sir. Right, okay, so, I mean, it's we don't have to believe the same thing to be nice to each other, which exactly goes to the are Jews antisocial against non-Jews thing that I just read one comment before that. So, yes, just because we don't share the same belief doesn't exactly mean that we are antisocial and that we can't be nice and respectful and kind and open up our hearts. It doesn't mean I have to follow your path, but it means I can be a human being, right? And treat you with respect, at least so long as you deserve it. Okay, so wait. So he continued. Okay, so Nikolashdia continued and said, "That's correct. When I say I'm not a believer, of course I have my beliefs. They're just a little more simple than others. I'm a great believer in Mother Earth, nature, and the great cycle of life," he says. "Nothing more, nothing less. I accept that I'm here and one day I will die. And simply by loving, respecting, and being nice to others, I will live on in the hearts and minds of those that knew and loved me back." What is it? Yes. Yeah, it's an infection. You got to take care of it. Okay, I understand. She said it will hurt. The doctor. No, she said give it a couple of weeks. So give it a couple of weeks. Listen, if you literally can't stand it and it's burning you, then we get in touch with the doctor. Otherwise, do the 2 weeks and then see where it's at. He continues and says, "I actually stopped on your video because you reminded me of my cousin that lives in a different country. You would pass as his twin." Well, nothing like a doppelganger. Callan said, "You stereotypically look like the typical Jew." Okay, I'll take that as a compliment, I suppose. So, okay, there were a few others, but forget those. Let's go to the chat right here and see what's up. Also, I accidentally, not accidentally, BMXers with dreadlocks. He commented a day or two ago on a video from 4 months ago, and I went in there and I discovered that that may have been one where I had to go before a ton of the chat was addressed by me. So hopefully I will be going back to that at some point, maybe now, maybe later, who's to say? Yeah. Yeah, just be careful that you do it. Hey, dude, you gotta get rid of this. You gotta get healthy, then get fit. Yes. Okay. Harris Lost says yes, due to her anti-Christianic ways, which represents minorities. Wait. Kamala Harris is anti-Christian according to you? I have no idea if she is or isn't, but I'm wondering where you see that. It seems to me that since the US is by and large a Christian nation, anybody who's hoping to be elected as president of these United States would not go against Christianity. Even if they are liberal, even if they are to the left, even if they are, well, Kamala Harris, I don't think it would be in her best interest at all to be anti-Christian. That's her voters, right? Yes asks, does Judaism believe that the dead can speak to us through visions or dreams? Yes, the dead can speak, but we are not supposed to seek them out. The dead, we're not supposed to worship them, we're not supposed to put them on a pedestal, right? Insofar as following them, we follow their teachings, we follow their ways and their lore, but we don't follow them. And people sometimes go to different graves of righteous folk and prophets, and they pray there. And when they do that, mostly they pray to the Most High God that the merits of these holy men and women who are buried here would be, for our benefit. You don't pray to the grave. You don't pray to the dead. You don't ask the dead for favors. And according to Torah, you choose life. You choose life. So the dead can speak to us through visions or dreams, but we are not supposed to be seeking them out actively. And there's some would say a subtle line, but I don't think it's subtle at all. Shalom from Sweden. Hello. Hey, Holger, you've been here before. I recognize the name. Shalom, shalom from Jerusalem to you all. Back then, outwards interference was almost never for good. Back then? Which back then are you referring to? I guess you were referring to something I was saying 9 minutes ago, or 6 minutes ago. Shalom and God bless from West Kentucky, says James Bong. It's good to see your name here in the chat again. Yes, continues. He says, but up to 100 years ago, there was literally no discrimination at Westworld, actors, scientists, etc. Well, I'm not following what you're saying, yes. I'm not following if you're continuing your previous thought or if you're reacting to things that I was saying a few minutes ago. It's difficult for me to discern. He says target of the Zionist was to divide and not to unite. Again, I'm sorry, man. You got to rephrase it because I'm not sure what you're saying. James Bong says, I'm going to have a barbecue today. Ooh, good for you. Enjoy. Wish I can have you all over for some smoked beef ribs. Well, I don't partake of ribs, but if you would throw something else on there, I might eat it. Robert says, you are 100% correct, HN, about the majority of Jews or Israel didn't reject him at first. Right, that's sort of, it makes a great deal of sense to me that the people of Israel would not reject him at first. It really, really does make great sense. Paula, hi Paula, good to see you here. North Carolina just elected its first ever Jewish governor, Jos Stein. It even made the Times of Israel news. I was very happy to cast a vote for him. So, tell me, what has Jos Stein been doing? The first ever Jewish governor. Well, good for him. Hopefully he will be good for North Carolina. Holger says, I think it is okay to self-segregate like some Jews do and the Amish people. Right, to self-segregate. And again, it doesn't mean you need to be an asshole. It doesn't mean you need to be condescending. It doesn't mean you need to see yourself as holier than thou or them. But it means that you need to know where you separate yourself, where to draw certain lines, when to push the lines, right? When to bend the rules, but when to stand fast with them. BMXer says, ba 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 bong, ba 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 bong bong, be bong bong bong. That's what he said. Yes asks, are you Paula and Robert anyway related? Yes, they are husband and wife, man and wife, ish ve'isha. Remind me of your shirt character theme song. Well, I don't know if it's the theme song, but it's the oh yeah when he shows up at Moe's. When Barney's the designated driver. No, not tonight.
Abba's here.
Abba, what's here?
Phone.
The phone is where? You said it was there. Now it's there?
Yes.
On the right? Yeah, okay. Okay. Yes asks, is there any other passage in Torah where removing shoes is required? Well, required? I know that the priests and the Levites would be barefoot at the temple. Maybe it was just the priests. I think it was also the Levites, possibly also the Israelites, because they each had their own designated area where they were partaking of the ritual worship and carrying it out. In the temple, there was no, they had to be barefoot. But a passage in Torah where removing shoes is required, well, it would be when Moses approaches the scene of the burning bush. Love you too. Sweet dreams, my man. And it would also be not in the Torah, but in the prophets, right? When Joshua is going to Jericho, right, to Jericho. But is it required? No, I don't think so. I'm trying to recall. I don't recall offhand. Anything you want to toss on the grill? All right. I'm a fan of eggplant on the grill with trina, right? I'm a fan of portobello mushrooms with some good sauce on the grill. I'm a fan of any run-of-the-mill, heavily processed, vegan burgers, hot dogs, or whatever. Yes, says this has a lot of similarities with some Greek priests. Oh, I'm sorry, before that, he said, I refer to Hebrew people supposedly not interfering with others. Well, what do you mean by interfering? Do you mean mingling? Do you mean living next to? Do you mean, how do you mean? What do you mean by interfering exactly? Because that makes a difference. BMXer says, by the way, I saw that there will be a Hangover 4. A Hangover 4. I only saw the first one. Maybe I saw bits of the second one. In animation, though, I might watch it. I loved those movies. I love Mr. Chow. I don't recall the character Mr. Chow. Don't recall. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu. Melech ha'olam she'akol nהיה b'dvaro. Green tea and cranberry, right? I think that's what I'm having right now. Green tea and cranberry. It's nice. All right. So similarities with Greek priests. So, like I said, there are different people in different groups and sects and faiths and religions who segregate themselves in some way, separate themselves in some way. Greek priests, the Greek Orthodox Church, does it also mandate that its clergy be separated and segregated? And I do know that there was one Greek Orthodox priest or monk who died 2-3 years ago, something like that. Oh, I mean, within the last 10 years, something like that. And he was born and raised in the literal church in the monastery, and he had never ever laid eyes on a woman, on an adult human female, or a kid for that matter, on any girl or woman his entire life. He born there, raised there, lived there, died there, without ever coming into visual contact with a woman. That's quite a thing. Now, I'm not a fan of that, because we in the Hebrew people are supposed to, right, marry, have kids, do the whole thing, by and large. And sexual relations are sacred when you sanctify them. They are sacred, right? When you make them holy, when you separate it, and when you sanctify your woman, when you marry her, then that makes the union a sacred thing. Again, by and large. So, I do understand why certain religious people would want to do that, but to state that as a kind of to mandate that the clergy abstain from marriage and kids, it really, at a glance, it simply seems, what a shame. These are people who are spiritual people, and who, why shouldn't they pass on their genetic material? It seems to be kind of, not that it defeats the purpose, but, well, let's just leave it at that. It's like the best and most spiritual people are the ones who end up not having kids. That's too bad. Ancient Greek Dodoni oracle. They also didn't wash their feet in order to better conduct divination. And a Cretan site says yes. Where also covering hair is required, at that place you wouldn't spell Artemis' name as well. Cretan. Artemis. Artemis sounds familiar, but I don't know what Cretan is. Refresh your memory, says BMXers, and search Mr. Chow. Ken Jeong is a great actor. No, I don't recall it offhand. Was he in the first one or the second one? Because I saw the first one and parts of the second one. Yes says, actually, some Phrygian fellows self-castrated in public. Okay, I'm not sure. I mean, are you simply now calling out different eccentricities of people of faith or religion? He was in all three. Uriah, my man, can you please come here and mute your phone? Little man? Never mind. Also, by the way, BMXers says, I saw the Seinfeld episode where George moved back in with his parents. That's a good one. That's a really good one. It's his frustration and disappointment with himself is palpable. Okay, let's continue with a few other comments that were here. Wait. Anything held? No, nothing was held. Okay. Is that Pinky barking? Asked BMXs earlier. That was not Pinky, it was the neighbor's dog. Regarding Gaelic and Scotland, BMXer says, right, that was brought up on Monday. And he says it's actually called Scottish Gaelic as opposed to Irish Gaelic. And in case he didn't answer, Gaelic is one of the Celtic languages, yes. And although a language only spoken in Europe today, in one province or town in Spain, their Spanish has a Gaelic accent. It's unlike any of the European languages because it's very similar to Hebrew in some cases, and like Welsh, another Celtic language, script looks very much like Paleo-Hebrew. Voila, I didn't know that. That's very cool. He continues and says, was also a town in Turkey, an ancient Greek territory, he says, called Galatia. Now, there is Galicia, but I guess that's not what we're talking about here. Galicia is, I think, Poland, Europe, Eastern Europe. So Galatia, Christians know this very well because there's a letter to the Galatians in the New Testament. These are all the places that Gales went, and like France, formerly called Gaul, right, in the olden times, as they moved from Israel to Ireland and eventually Scotland. So the Irish Celts that later became Scottish Celts have origins in the people of Israel, in the land of Israel, or the people of Israel. There's also a document in Scotland called the Declaration of Arbroath, or Arbroath, which states that the Scottish came from Israel. Well, that's really interesting. But again, do you mean from Israel the land or from Israel the people? The Scots/Irish, collectively Celt ancestors originally came from Israel. Well, I had no idea. I wonder if that is true. Anyone out there, a historian? Do let me know. I'm curious. And BMXers also said halacha is sexist, and that's why there were usually no queens and only kings. Also, he continues and says, I forgot to say here, that was, again, on Monday's chat, he says, Ras Muhammad studied at a university or something in Brooklyn, New York, and he likes to make music videos with black and white Rastas, like Promo and Jacoustics. It's a music video representing a white, black, and Asian Rasta. Oh, that's nice. Right, see, you can be a Rasta. I'm not a Rasta, but you can definitely be a Rasta if you take on the vow, you take on the way of life of the Rastafarians, you are a Rasta. And I know that there are different, more militant groups of Rastas who are more, keep it black and keep it African and that whole thing. But I think that Rastafari himself, right, the Emperor, His Imperial Majesty, Haile Selassie, I don't know if he would be against white Rastas and black Rastas and Asian Rastas, and I think that he would, much like he told the Jamaicans there, he was like, I may not be God, but keep doing your thing. I think that's how he would think about it. But no idea. I saw a national park in Egypt, he says, called Ras Muhammad. I think it has a completely different meaning in Arabic, though just like Ras El Ghul has. Well, Ras means head, and Muhammad, right, or leader, and Muhammad is Muhammad. So if it's not Nabi Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad, and it's Ras Muhammad, it might be named after a different Muhammad who was a local leader, or it might be named after their prophet, right, Muhammad the Prophet, only with a Ras meaning head, or head of, or leader. So I have no idea. A national park called Ras Muhammad. That's interesting. Sneezer said, in Ephesians, the New Testament, well, we were talking on Monday about the sword, the flaming sword, and the Kuvim, the cherubs, right, guarding the path to the tree of life. He said the sword is specified as the Holy Spirit, inferring its gift to discern good from evil, and lighting the darkness quickly and crucially. Okay, I can understand why the Christians would think of it as that. I don't know if it doesn't necessarily go against what I said on Monday, that right, the sword and the flame both are attributed to the left hand, and that it's exactly that left hand, that gvura, that din, death itself, which will be taken away from the world when we partake of the fruit of the tree of life. But if you're talking about, right, the ability to discern and illuminate, then yeah, I can see why the sword, and that's a flame, would be exactly that. So that's not a bad interpretation at all. Not a bad interpretation at all. I like that. Okay, let's continue with today's chat. Yes asks, have you heard that Columbus was found to be a Jew? I heard something like that, but seriously, I don't know what to think anymore. So many So many records have been altered and censored and lost. It's difficult to know, right? It's difficult to know really what's up. It wouldn't surprise me, but yes, asks, do you know of the emperor who almost built Third Temple, but a severe earthquake destroyed it as well as Galilee? An emperor? Which emperor? Do you mean a Roman emperor? I'm assuming you mean. Wait. Let's not assume that. Because Rome destroyed the Second Temple. So which emperor are we talking about? Not the emperor of Rome, surely. Was it? I'm not sure. Our new governor, Jos Stein, says Paula, says he practices Reform Judaism. What exactly is that, HN? What exactly it is? Ask a Reform Jew. But by and large, Reform Judaism is a kind of Judaism which branched out a few hundred years ago, if I'm not mistaken. It really gained traction 200 years ago? I might be wrong, but it's fairly recent. And it takes halacha as not binding. And let's put it this way. The Reform rabbis, they officiate in interfaith marriages. That's something that, let's say, an Orthodox rabbi and probably even a conservative rabbi, conservative Judaism would not do. And that's something a Reform rabbi does do. And I know that the conversion process is very different. The prayers are very different in the sense of that new prayers with more modern day vernacular, more egalitarian. There's some very good things about Reform Judaism, primarily as I perceive it, the idea of tikkun olam. Tikkun olam means healing of the world, fixing of the world, repairing of the world, adorning the world. It has to do with this idea that although Judaism and the Torah tends to stick, within 12 tribes, people of Israel, do your thing and let them do theirs, Tikkun Olam is, and where is it all going? Why are we practicing this Torah? Why are we carrying out these commandments? Why do we hold to these covenants? It's more than just about us. It might start with us, but it eventually is something global, right? The Torah, the covenant, much like the covenant of the rainbow from last week, it's a global thing between Adonai and all creation. And through the generations, now it's been sort of whittled down to the 12 tribes of Israel and then to 2 or 3 tribes, right? One kingdom that survived it. And in the course of the generations, it's been kind of narrowing down more and more. And Reform Judaism and possibly also conservative Judaism, they hold greatly to the idea of tikkun olam, of fixing the world, healing the world, not in the sense of, I know what to do, I will fix the world, watch me, I'm better than you all. Again, not in a holier than thou condescending pain in the ass kind of way. In a way of, when you learn Torah, when you carry out a commandment, when you are talking with God and trying to be a good Jew, remember that it's the whole world that lies in the balance. And that your job here as an individual, our job here as a people, is to fix ourselves, and in doing so, fix the world. Something like that. And I truly do connect to that idea of tikkun olam. And it's, even though, let's put it this way, many Reform Jews, if I'm not mistaken, their sons and daughters, their grandchildren, 2 or 3 generations later, they don't even know that they're Jews. Something like that. I don't know the stats, but I did do, at least at the time, years ago, some research into conservative Judaism, Reform Judaism, humanitarian Judaism, right? The offshoots and the branches of Judaism, the main ones, and those are the main ones, definitely in the Western world, right? Orthodoxy, conservative, Reform, humanitarian. All of them have good points. All of them have also things that I wouldn't necessarily want to take on myself. And because I grew up modern Orthodox in Jerusalem, I stick more closely with the Orthodox path, though I'm not. I have my own path. But I have a great, right, affinity and affiliation with modern day Orthodoxy. But I've grown to appreciate what some conservatives and Reform Jews are saying and what their rabbis are saying, and it's not hang on. No. It's not simply a case of, I want to be allowed to do this and this. I want to be allowed to eat non-kosher food, so I won't see halacha as binding. No, it's not like that. I don't think it's like that anyway. But it's about shouldering, I'm not even going to say a different kind of responsibility. It's simply looking at the Torah in a different way. And there's nothing wrong with looking at the Torah in a different way. There's nothing wrong with not necessarily going with the rabbinic Orthodox Judaism that we know. The question is, as always, where do you draw the line? When do you stop being Jewish in the sense of your kids won't be Jewish? Is it a mere technicality, right? Because even if they are, let's say, born to a Jewish mother and they are technically Jewish, will they know Judaism? Will they know Torah? Will they know of the covenants that we hold to and the commandments that we seek to carry out and the different holidays, our history, our traditions, the heritage, that whole thing? So that's a long-winded answer, and I don't know if it truly says anything, because like I said, I'm not a Reform Jew, and I've spoken to Reform Jews, but I can't tell you exactly what it is. I'll just say it's a more modern approach to Judaism with everything that entails. Oh, I did hear him. He's waking up. I hope he's not waking up. He needs to sleep. Maybe I need to shut up. Should I stop broadcasting? No. I'll let him. I'll lower my voice. I hope. Okay. BMXer says Kramer is my favorite character, but Elaine is the reason I watch it. Oh man, I loved that show even before I studied screenwriting, and definitely after I studied screenwriting. It's just so good. By the way, says yes, Celts, Gauls, and Helens are probably named from Hel, meaning hidden. Hel, H-E-L, hidden. In what language does that mean hidden? Yes asks, in your opinion, why fake gods require blood? Some say because of the iron, but doesn't look right. Well, the Torah says that the blood is the nefesh. The nefesh is a lower form of soul. And because the blood is associated with a kind of spiritual element of the living thing, of the organism, we are not allowed to eat it, right? In the Torah it says, toss it on the ground, you're not allowed to eat it, you're not allowed to partake of it, you're not allowed to consume it, either throw it on the ground, or if you need to, if you're making a sacrifice, throw it on the altar, but don't consume it, because hadam hu hanefesh, the blood is the nefesh, the blood is part of the soul. It's to say that physical amalgamation, right, of blood cells and plasma and water and whatever else there is in the bloodstream, that's the life force, the initial one, right? I've said this many times, right? There's five really, but three life forces of life. One exists in the blood, and one exists in the heart, and one exists in the mind or in the brain. Now, this is not anatomically, physiologically necessarily true. It's a kind of analogy, but it holds some practical halachic meanings, right? Something like don't eat blood. So why did fake gods require blood? Require is a strong word. I know that the reason why the Hebrew God required sacrifices eventually is because we were supposed to be the sacrifice, we were supposed to be the altar, we were supposed to be the temple, that image of God incarnate, us. And again, through the generations and the passage of time and everything that went down, there was a need not for God. God doesn't need anything, but it was us, the people, who needed a physical expression of the element of sacrifice, a sacrificial offering. It can be a living thing, it can be plants, it can be wine, it can be water. But yes, blood. Why does it require blood? Because it has to do, right, hadamu nefesh. So why fake gods require blood, I have no idea. I know that according to Torah, God requires, at least in the past, required animal sacrifices. because it was supposed to have an effect on you, the individual who is now bringing and offering the sacrifice. It's not because God needs flesh or blood or or anything of the sort. Julian, East Roman Empire. Okay. So it was after. So wait, if I'm not mistaken, right? East Roman was East Roman, and the Byzantine Empire was in the west. So Julian, not Julius, Julian, like from the Julian. Is it the Julian calendar? Wait, the Julian calendar that came before the Gregorian calendar. Is that Julius or Julian, or am I simply mistaking all of it and it's just a mishmash in my brain? Okay. Robert says Trump got 99% of Orthodox vote, but secular, I don't know. Voila. 99% of the Jewish Orthodox vote. I guess those people think he'll be good for Israel or for Jews. Let's hope. Let's hope he's good for America, right? America first. I'm all about that. If you're a leader of a country, it's your country first. That should be obvious. I don't know how to actually bring it about. I'm not a leader or a politician. Hodu l'Adonai ki tov. Give thanks to God, for he is good. Robert says, have you ever had a Duff beer? I heard Homer sucks them down like Coca-Cola. No, I have not had a Duff beer. And since I no longer partake of beer, the only time I'll be able to drink one if it's a non-alcoholic Duff beer. I don't think Homer, Barney, or Mo, for that matter, would appreciate that. Seek truth, shalom. Hey, you made it. Shalom to you all. Robert says, I just read where the Most High asks the Levite Ezekiel, well, he was a priest, but a Levite in tribal affiliation. He asks him to eat the scroll, and it became sweet as honey. Yes. Now, again, this was in all likelihood in his mind's eye. And Maimonides, the Rambam, very famously says that nothing that the prophets said that they carried out was actually carried out. It was all in their mind's eye. And they later conveyed and communicated it to the people in accordance with what they had received, but what they received was all in here and here. And it didn't necessarily have to be carried out. So, whoops. So, this thing. My wife hates this little thing. So I don't know if he actually ate a scroll or if it was in his mind's eye, but yes, sweet as honey. Vayehi befiki dvash lematok. Dvash is honey. Ezekiel said after the vision of the Kruvim, he sat there in astonishment. Yes, va'eshtomem, if I'm not mistaken, is the word. Va'eshtomem. That's right. Robert says, what is your opinion of being Jewish? Because our Reformed Jews is still very Jewish, just saying. I think that's too much for... it's too big a question. It's too big a question. I can't tell you who is Jewish and who isn't. Are we talking about the lineage? Are we talking about holding on to the covenant, taking on the yoke of Torah, believing in the one Hebrew God, and being circumcised, going to a mikveh, even if you don't have a Jewish mother? By many accounts, right then and there, you are a convert, and a righteous one at that. So, what is my opinion of being Jewish? I have none. Because for everything that I can say, you could counter it with, oh, well, what about these people? What about that group? What about that sect? What about that? So I have no idea. I really don't. Yes, says, I heard there was also a Jewish kind of heretic Eastern Europe path in 1700 where they performed quite the miracles. A heretic Jewish sect that performed miracles? What do you mean, you heard? Tell me more. Like, does he have a car? Yes, says Hel, hell, as well as Ka, earth, matter, mother, have common meanings to all the Indo-European languages. Yes. Are you a linguistics major? Are you a linguist? You seem to know a lot about the languages, and I like that. That's good. Timothy Levine. Hi, Timothy. You've been here before as well. Good to see you again. The tribe came out and voted Trump, he says. Well, so it seems, according to what Robert Harrison says. So, Yes continues. If we have the lowest spiritual at blood, which even filthy ones can eat, those unable to accept it directly, looks like Earth herself has it at this humid, recently found layer between mantle and surface. I'll read that once again here. Hang on. If we have lowest spiritual at blood, which even filthy ones can eat, those unable to accept it directly, looks like Earth herself has it at this humid, recently found layer between mantle and surface, has some properties as blood, he continues, and each and every chthonic deity ritual has to end with blood in deep holes. Actually, myths told of us having another system except blood vessels, also lately discovered. I mean, that's a bunch of information, and it's news to me, not that I'm a geologist of any kind. That's interesting. So there's a layer between the mantle and the surface that has a blood-like kind of has the same properties as blood? What do you mean same properties? How can it have the same properties? Right? We have white blood cells, red blood cells, we have plasma, we have water. All those things can't exist in the crust of the earth. That doesn't make sense. Or if it does, then it certainly isn't blood, right? So when you say it has the same properties as blood, could you be more specific? I'm curious. Do you get a lot of grief by advertising you are Nazarite? It depends where you live, I'm sure. Well, I don't advertise it. This is, it's not like I walk around with a neon sign. And like I've been asked this before, how do people react? I'm like, nobody reacts. Nobody assumes that a person is a Nazarite. Certainly a person like me who doesn't wear a yarmulke and who has no tzitzit, has no fringes, right? The tassels, the strings. I don't wear those either because veganism. And so I don't look like I don't, right, and the other Nazarites that I've met here in Yerushalayim were Orthodox rabbis. I've met 3 of them, and they were 3 or 4 so far. And they were Orthodox rabbis. So I have no idea. Do I get any grief? No, I don't get any grief, and certainly not a lot of grief. Also because I don't advertise it. If somebody asks, I don't shy away from answering. But I do have a rule, I don't blurt it out. Meaning, if somebody says, hey, why do you have the long hair? The first thing I say is, it's part of a vow that I took. Then if they say, what is the nature of this vow? And so then I'll say it's a Nazarite vow, but it's not something that I would generally advertise, as you put it. Then again, I'm very, very happy and glad and honored and humbled and privileged to be able to carry on this tradition of the Nazariteship, even if I definitely don't. I'm no poster boy for the Nazariteship. Let's put it that way. I have many faults. I have many issues, and I don't claim to have fulfilled this vow, right? I'm a sinner. I'm a sinning Nazarite, but a Nazarite nonetheless. And as long as that still is a part of me, the Nazariteship, I'm happy to be carrying it forward. And I always go back to the quote from Rabbi David Cohen, the Jerusalem Nazarite, who died in the late 70s. And he said, if I was only put here on this earth to make the name of Nazarite known again in the modern day society, that would have been enough. To make the name of Nazarite known again. So many people think that it doesn't exist anymore. And other people think that there are no Nazarites and that you shouldn't be a Nazarite. You're not allowed to be a Nazarite. And if somebody could go, huh, that's interesting. Oi. Oi, oi, oi. I hope he falls back to sleep. If he doesn't fall back to sleep soon, I'll have to cut this short and leave. I heard Iran is shaking in their boots, says Robert. Well, the government, the leadership of Iran, not the Iranians themselves, I think. I heard Iran is shaking in their boots. They did not want Trump as president at all. I don't blame them. He's a wild card. Yes says, which explains Tebi Kelep, extreme proto-civilization. What do you mean by extreme proto-civilization? At Turkey, because at this exact place the mantle arose and came to the surface. It is affected by magnetic waves, he says, and can perhaps interfere with one's self-identification, meaning data manipulation. It can interfere with one's self-identification? How? I'm curious. How would something that goes on in the earth affect an organism that exists with it but outside of it? Oh, I think I'm gonna have to say goodbye and put him back to sleep. I'll give him a couple of more minutes. Seek Truth says, our livestock always tries to nibble on my tassels. So hey, Seek Truth, what tzitzit do you have? What kesher do you have? Is it Ravid? Is it Rambam? Is it Ashkenazi, Sfaradi? Do you have a blue fringe? If it's a blue fringe, is it the one that from the snail? Or is it dyed blue with a different dye? I'd love to know more about your tzitzis. Robert asks, in Israel, is it easy to strike up a normal, friendly conversation with people, or do people tend to stay to their self? No, it's easy. It's easy to strike up a conversation in Israel for sure. I would think so. Of course, occasionally you'll meet some person who's not into it, and who doesn't want to, and who's like, buzz off. But basically, yeah, overall, warm, friendly people, not without a temper, but yeah, warm, friendly people, the Israelis are, I would say. But I'm biased. Robert says, I would have to see what the 7 locks of Samson looked like. Yep, Sheva Machlafot. Oy, oy, oy. I don't want to go, but I think I'm going to have to go and put him back to sleep. What to do. All right. I'll have to continue this another time. It's been almost an hour. I will say thank you to all of you, those watching now, those watching later. I deeply appreciate your engagement, your kind attention, your time, every view, every like, every sub, every comment, everything. It's lovely that I get to just click go live and be here with you people and share some Torah and learn from you and have a moment, right? And have a dialogue, or an hour in this case. Is he asleep? Do I continue? What do I do? I'm going to say good night. Good night from Jerusalem. God willing, I will see you on Friday. Until then.